Hey everybody, welcome to Cougar Dash. I'm your host, Ryan Root, followed by Cody Schoeler. And today is unfortunately a sad reality for men's basketball as the Cougars were eliminated by the Sun Devils in the first round of the Pac-12 Tournament. They lost 64-59. The leading scorer for WSU was, of course, Isaac Bonson, who made his return to the starting lineup. And ASU, although their leading scorer was not Remy Martin, who yet again had a terrible game against WSU. Alonzo Verge Jr. dropped 26 on the Cougs, followed by Kamani Lawrence and a very, very great performance from House, I believe was his first name, Jalen House.
Jalen House, yep.
Great performance from ASU, to be honest. It was an entertaining game, I'll give it to him, but we got to at least talk about the last play, right? The last play from WSU. So, Cody, maybe give me like your initial thoughts on what WSU was really playing in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are maybe being a little bit too nice by calling it a play because it really didn't look like they knew what they were doing. I mean, I just think there's a few things wrong with it. The first thing is, not getting the ball to Bonton. I love Noah Williams. He's made some plays, but, Bonton kind of had it. That game, he was their leading scorer. I know they like to use him to inbound it because, I mean, right before that, they inbounded it straight into a jump ball that gave Arizona State the ball back. So obviously they want to get that ball in. But, there was enough time for Williams to settle down and get the ball back to Bonton and, let him get a shot. And then, Noah Williams can make some plays going to the basket, but, he just seemed out of control. It just seemed like they weren't ready for the moment, which is, kind of surprising because we've obviously seen them play bad down the stretch a few times, but for the most part, they seem like, they can hang in some close games. So, I was really surprised because not necessarily that they lost because obviously, it could have gone either way. And I wasn't, explicitly expecting a win, but, for them to not even get a shot off, for them to kind of just, I don't even know, dribble it off, whatever, just lose the ball and turn it over like that was a little disappointing because you'd like to see, them at least go out with a shot to win.
Yeah, it was definitely a close game, obviously, and the fact that WSU was up with they were up by 1 or 2 with less than a minute to go. I mean, that inbound play is not the final possession from WSU, but the held ball on Noah Williams, I think, is another play that sticks out because, I mean, they didn't have any timeouts to call. If they did, it would have been a technical, and if they had it. I understand what you're saying about Bonton inbounding the ball. According to Bonton and Smith in their post-game pressers, they were like, oh, Bonton's going to get doubled, so we wanted him inbounding the ball, and Bonton agreed and this and that. I can understand what you're saying, but, if you double-team one person, then, one other person is open, right? And that could have been Noah. Yeah. That could have been, I think Rodman was out there. Rodman was wide open for at least for a three-pointer. We didn't need a 3. We needed a 1, but, it just wasn't orchestrated in 100% to perfection. Obviously, was it a complete disaster? No. Should he have gotten a shot off? I shouldn't say should he have gotten a shot off. Like, would it have been great for him to get a shot off? Of course. Taking a layup with 3 people surrounding you, I don't think is ever really a splendid decision unless you're Russell Westbrook or LeBron James. But it's an unfortunate way to end the game, but like I said, it was close throughout. WSU had some chances, had some very comfortable leads. They held ASU scoreless, then they held WSU scoreless. It was much like their first contest, which I want to ask you, do you think that game that was canceled after 2 days after their first matchup, that would have been the second straight game for them? And to be honest, I think if all the dominoes fell, they still would have played ASU in the first round. So that would have been 3 straight games. So first game being the close to a buzzer beater from Remy Martin to a loss. Second game gets canceled in the Pac-12 tournament. Do you think that second game would have, helped out in some regards for WSU in game planning and maybe not made this game so close?
I'm not sure because, they just played them before, I think they knew everything. If anything, I may say that it would benefit them, and that all comes down to Isaac Bonton's health because he looked fine in the game. He looked great. I know they said Kyle Smith said he was going to be on a minutes restriction, and that did not happen. Bonton looked great, so I don't think he needed another game to get fully healthy, but maybe that was the case. Maybe he was at 90, 95%, so maybe that would have helped. But other than that, I think they kind of had an advantage because they were able to kind of adjust to what ASU did. They had an extra wrinkle to throw in Bonton's presence that ASU wasn't able to game plan for. Obviously, they've all played each other last year, so they knew what to expect a little bit. But, I think if they would have played again and WSU would have won that second game, then I think that would have made it, difficult for them, to win again, because I think ASU would have been able to kind of, adjust to what they've done. And if ASU won twice, then I don't know. I mean, it's hard to beat a team three times, but also to beat a team twice, you're probably better than that team. So, I think the week long or whatever it was layoff might have been the worst part. Not playing basketball for a week. Obviously, we've seen teams, go a couple weeks and look a little bit rusty. It obviously wasn't that long, but that may have been, some good with getting to rest some legs, but also tough with you haven't played live basketball in a week. So maybe that was kind of the most difficult thing, especially to be without that momentum, to come off such a close loss and have to wait a week to get your revenge. So maybe that was kind of what, because they started out not very good. I mean, it took 3 minutes for them to score a bucket. The first half was just, pretty bad on both sides, but WSU only scored 24 points. So I think if you're looking at, how that kind of impacted them, I think the rust might have been the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think one of the other kind of things that stood out from the first round yesterday was, yes, Bonton had a good game. Obviously, you can kind of expect that from him most of the time, but definitely wanted to expect more from Noah Williams. This is kind of what we've been seeing with Noah as of late, where he'll have a near triple-double and then a 40-point game, and then he'll have a game where he turns over the ball 7 times, including 2 of the most crucial turnovers of the game, shooting 4 for 11 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3. He was one of the team's best 3-point shooters statistically, behind I think Rodman. And you obviously want to expect a bigger game from Noah. He had, I believe he had a big game in last year's first round when the Cougs were the Pac-12 champions, because they played the last game of the Pac-12 tournament. But besides the point, I was expecting a bigger game from him, obviously. And also, where was the bench in this? All of the scoring came from, I believe it all came from the starters. And that's just not, how are you going to win? How are you going to win basketball games like that? The fact that it was a 5-point loss, or really kind of a 1-point loss if you take away the foul and the intentional foul at the end, how do you expect to win a basketball game when your bench isn't there? TJ Bamba didn't play, sure, and Kuntz had an off game, which was a little rare for Kuntz, but you got to, you had one guy score on the bench, then judging off of those 3 points that I said were kind of just, or those 4 points that were kind of whatever, you win the game. If you have a chance to win the game, at least if you make one single basket off the bench. A lot of things didn't go right. The rebounding was, pretty all right. They out rebounded them quite a bit, and it's an unfortunate way to end, but it's just kind of how WSU was going at the end of the season. So we can kind of get to the next topic, which is more of a positive light, if you will, and do some end of the season awards for WSU and figure out who wins what. So we can get one of the most obvious awards out of the way right now. MVP, who's the most valuable player, or MVC, who's the most valuable Coug?
Yeah. So we've seen some good stretches from a lot of players, but obviously, it has to go to Isaac Bonton. And one thing I want to say just overall is just the end of season awards for the conference in general. I feel like some WSU players got slighted. Bonton's a 3rd leading scorer in the conference, and he can't get one of the 10 spots on the All Pac-12 first team. That's a little surprising. I probably missed some games, but I don't think there's 10 players that I would want over him. And then, Noah Williams, obviously, doesn't get most improved player. A little interesting, because I think, for the leap that he made was, incredibly impressive. Without the fact that he had to step up a lot. The guy from Stanford that won it, he never had to be the guy. He never had to be even, maybe the second guy. And then Noah not getting on the all defensive team, there's,
that one may be the most.
and even Bonton. I mean, Bonton I think led the conference in steals. So even Noah maybe had a down year in terms of some. I don't know all the defensive plus minus and all that, but I think one of them definitely should have been on there. But that's
Even FA.
I don't.
Did FA make a defensive team or?
No, I don't think so. And they only had a few honorable mentions, but I don't want to be the guy that thinks that the team got screwed in this or that. Everybody likes to think that, but I just think that there was some spots that maybe WSU, who was pretty good for most of the season, has a winning record. If you're looking at non-conference records, they have better than some of the teams above them in the conference standing. But besides that, obviously Bonton is the MVP, and I think other than those games where Noah Williams went berserk, you see it when he wasn't out there. That game against UW, and even that game against ASU, like those are wins if Bonton's out there because of what he provides. And it's a cliche, but he does make everybody else better. I mean, the way he is just able to pass, he gets passes to the big men like nobody else on the team can. And then he's the guy who can get you a bucket when you need one. So I think it's pretty obvious he's an incredible scorer. And yeah, I mean, I know you can't. I'm sure you've got somebody else you can pick. It's not far and away a blowout, but who you got?
I mean, other than Bonton, you could really just kind of go with Noah Williams, obviously, with his spree he went on without Bonton in the lineup. But it's kind of like you said, Bonton, when he's out there, everything revolves around him. He makes everybody better. Yeah. The only other person you can kind of put up in contention would be Noah Williams, but to be honest, I think it's probably the most obvious award in terms of the W2 roster.
I would say the only argument you could say is that Noah Williams played every game. Only people that started every week. So if you really wanted to make an argument, you could go for that. But I think Bonton was too good when he played to really have anything there.
So we got another. Well, this one's kind of a little bit more debatable, but freshman of the year. This one can kind of go. I'd like to say. Well, we have 4 freshmen that played, or I guess 5 with Carlos. I got to go with Deshaun Jackson, to be honest. It might be a little bit of a surprise there, but Deshaun Jackson, I mean, didn't play at all in non-conference, played in the conference and started, and absolutely, I think he blew away a lot of people's expectations. I mean, starting as a starting center in the Pac-12, true freshman. I mean, he was out there competing hard with Evan Mobley in both games. I think those are 2 games that really help his case. But I got Deshaun Jackson for freshman of the year.
Yeah, that's kind of I was leaning to. I think that by the end of the season, Deshaun Jackson was just more consistent and was more just he improved. As the season went along. By the end, he was really solid. But in honor of picking, I'll go with FA. The offense wasn't there as much down the stretch as it was at the start of the year as he started playing some tougher competition. But, the defense was there, always blocking shots, rebounding at an incredible rate. I believe he set some, he was top 5 in rebounds, I think, in the conference, somewhere up there in blocks while setting some freshman records and, or getting close in some rebounds and some blocking categories. And then, just the explosiveness he has. I mean, most of the highlights this year are, his dunks other than some butt shots and some 3-pointers from some other guys. But, some highlight plays. And he did, it struggled. Like, he had some games where he had some pretty, clutch buckets around the rim, whether it was a contested layup or a putback or something, So he is a guy you can rely on to get those baskets.
And for another one, we can kind of fast track some of these. I think we can do 3 more. Defensive Player of the Year. This one, I'd like to say FA on this one. This one might be a little bit more debatable as well. But FA, obviously, his athleticism, his jump out of the gym athleticism. Him being able to get 3-4 blocks in a night against non-conference opponents. It seems like he just seemed to kind of just bully all those teams. When he got to conference play, he kind of dipped down a little bit, but playing against FA down low, I mean, there's going to be an FA block that ends up on the highlight reel every game, right? So I think his presence down low is definitely a great start for him as a freshman. He doesn't have incredible, post defense yet, but give it time. I think he'll kind of get there. But I'm going to go with FA on this one. But I think I know who you might pick in contention of that. But
yeah, I mean, I think Bonton and Williams are both incredible perimeter defenders. I think Bonton might have. I don't know the exact number, but I believe he had averaging nearly 2 steals per game, maybe in conference play. But in the spirit of Bonton gets the MVP, so I'll give Noah Williams defensive player. He had some games where he struggled. I know the UW game he struggled, and a lot of times where he took on more of an offensive load. But we saw at the start of the year what he's capable of, locking people down. He held some people to some really poor shooting performances. He also has, I don't know if this is an over exaggeration, but he might be the best player in the country at drawing like clutch game-winning charges. He's done that quite a bit. That's a skill. Obviously, he's gotten in some foul trouble with some bad block calls, but I think if there's one guy I'm choosing on this team to go lock somebody down, unless it's Oscar Da Silva or Evan Mobley or some, 6'10" guy, I think I'm going to go with Noah Williams because he just has the tenacity to do that.
So for one, that's kind of a little bit of a, I'd like this award whenever it comes to the NBA and whatnot, but sixth man of the year for WSU, which this one's a little bit more open-ended, I think. But as far as the non-starters go, I really do like what Jazz Kuntz put together towards the end of the season. He really started having some big, kind of high single-digit games or double-digit scoring performances. I think I might have, there you go. Now you're popped back on the stream.
We haven't had these in a while, but a little bit of lag there. But yeah, go on.
Gotcha. Jazz Kuntz, I think, sixth man of the year. What he was putting together towards the end of the season really was great to see. But who else do you think could contend with that sixth man of the year spot?
Yeah, I mean, sixth man of the year is a kind of hard choice to make just because the starting lineup changed up quite a bit. It didn't seem like anybody was consistently coming off the bench. Everybody kind of got slotted in every once in a while. I think Kuntz is a really good pick because kind of what was it, halfway through or whatever, he kind of started to find his footing against. He started out the season as a starter and then got injured. Had to find his way back. And so. I mean, DJ Rodman's a good pick. I think he may have started too much. So I'm going to go with Ryan Rapp because this is a guy who, when, he started a few times because of injuries. He never started because of, playing well games. Like, he was always going to be a backup because he was behind Bonton and Noah Williams. So I think, he really embodies that sense of, he'd come in, he'd do what he was supposed to do, and we really saw an offensive improvement from him. I mean, this is a guy who, it was a joke at the start of the year that he wasn't scoring. Kyle Smith said that when he finally gets a bucket, he's going to call a timeout and they're all going to celebrate, and the fact that he would, then go for 15 points in a game, I think that really his improvement in what he can do. And, he came in, he facilitated, he may not do all these incredible things, but he very rarely made mistakes. And I think that's really important. He's not the spark plug guy off the bench that, you see at the NBA level and stuff, but he's a guy that you can always rely on to come off the bench and do what he's supposed to do.
And lastly, we can talk about most improved player, which we kind of covered a good chunk of them in the previous awards. You could easily go with Noah Williams on this. However, I'm going to kind of switch it up a little bit. I'm going to bring up Jazz Kuntz again, or even DJ Rodman for that matter. I mean, last year, Kuntz was kind of a role player. I mean, he was a sophomore at the time. I mean, him and Ellaby came up together. They were roommates, and now he's still with WSU, and Ellaby's killing it in Portland for the Trailblazers. But Kuntz, he had a great shooting role this year with some of those corner threes. He's got a real quick release. I want to say there was about a 4 or 5 game stretch where he was driving the lane and had some crazy Euro step looking layup that got the whole WSU bench to go crazy. But I really liked what Kuntz put together towards the end of the season, like I said. And again, with DJ Rodman having such a quick release, he's got about the most lax jump shot I've ever seen. Probably jumps about 4 centimeters off the ground and just kind of flips it up there and it'll go in. But those two kind of come to mind. But hopefully I didn't steal all of your picks there. But who comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I mentioned before, obviously it's Noah Williams. Arguably could have been the most improved player in the conference. And we've talked about him, just making a step from, being a guy who everybody thought, oh yeah, he's great. He can play defense, he can be there, but he can't shoot. Well, he can shoot now, and he showed that, scoring 14 whatever points per game. But I do agree with your other guys. Kuntz obviously his rebounding really stood out. He had some games where he led the team in rebounding, and I think DJ Rodman kind of made a little mini Noah Williams jump. He went from a kind of just a spot up shooter to he's doing a lot more. He's defending, he's posting up, he's driving the lane. So those are both some really good picks. But I think Noah Williams, the fact that he was one of the most improved players in the conference makes it pretty easy. But there was a lot of improvement on this team all around.
Of course, and I mean, there's some hope there's some hope in this offseason and the next season for WSU to make a huge jump. I mean, there was kind of some hope going into this season for WSU to make a jump. What they went 16-16 last year. This year going 14-13. This offseason is kind of it's a real testing point for Kyle Smith to see if he can continue his momentum in the recruiting side of things. I think it's fair to say for him as a coach, he's kind of proven himself, right? I mean, other than the huge technicals he'll get and things like that, everyone on this team's got his back. It doesn't seem like anyone's really it doesn't seem like anyone's really trying to get him out or transfer out or this or that. It's going to be interesting to see if he continues his momentum in the recruiting stage. And they currently have 2 people signed on. We have Miles Rice from Georgia, who's a 3-star recruit. He's a point guard. We'll see if he gets any playing time next year. It's far too early to tell about what their situation is going to be like next year. But Miles Rice out of Georgia, 3-star point guard. And we have a transfer from a D2 University of Cal San Diego. And what is this?
Tyrell Roberts.
Tyrell Roberts, who's a sharpshooter. Maybe he's a Malachi Flynn sequel. We'll see. But it looks like we got 2 guards so far. No big men, which, to be honest, I don't know about you, but I don't think that really is that's not really a focal point for the recruiting, if you ask me. I mean, you got F.A., you got Deshaun, you probably got Kuntz for another year. Vova's not going anywhere. I mean, maybe get someone to replace Vova, but big man doesn't seem like a huge focal point for me. But what do you think they should kind of target in this recruiting phase for these next coming months?
I mean, basketball is just depth. They really have, they have a pretty solid starting lineup. That doesn't mean that somebody can't come and break in, some star freshmen. But I'd like to see this team get, 8 deep, maybe. I don't really know what they're at right now because they're so inconsistent off the bench. But, for a team that's seemingly, Tony Miller's probably gone. I know he can come back, but, we didn't really see his season, get fulfilled with all that happened. And Bonton, that's still up in the air, but, I'm going to assume that he's gone. But really, this is a young team, and that is fine. The fact that they went 500, or over 500, was huge. I agree. Kyle Smith did an incredible job, but this team just needs to improve. If every player can just get better at, kind of one thing that they need to, Noah Williams did it with his shooting, maybe F.A. can get a mid-range, maybe, we've seen Deshaun kind of show that, but really we're just looking, to add depth. This Tyrell Roberts guy, maybe he's the starting point guard or he's just a scorer because, I still think the problem is just, they rely too heavily on their sole creator, whether it was Isaac Bonton or whether it was Noah Williams, they couldn't really function without one of those two on the court. And they need to be able to do that, whether it's through ball movement or whether it's through, somebody like Yakima Abramowski taking a step up and being a creator. That's really what it comes down to. So, if they can get a few recruits that they can slot in, and they're 8 deep next year with a solid rotation. Think of like a Stanford, that they obviously have their star player, but they just have a lot of bodies that they can throw at a team. UCLA kind of is the same thing. That's really what you need to succeed in college basketball, and a pretty wide open conference like the Pac-12. So I don't care where the guys are at. They could use an extra big man. They can use a wing. They could use a guard, whatever it is. I just want to know next year there's 8 guys that I can look at and I could say, I'm confident in each of these guys to be able to play and and get minutes on both sides of the court.
Yeah, I'd also like to see maybe some depth in that 3/4 position that kind of Andre and Jazz fiddle around with, because Rodman kind of goes around there too, but like you said, depth is probably the biggest thing with recruiting. If you ask me, I do not think Bonton's done. That's my prediction. I don't think losing in the first round of the Pac-12 tournament when you don't even get to take the last shot and it goes down the way that it did, and let alone you didn't start in the past almost month because of injuries. Knowing Bonton, why does he want to leave with that sort of ending to his WSU career? Do I think I don't think Bonton can enter the draft and get picked right now. And that being said, could he go overseas and do something? Yes. Could he transfer and do something? Yes, but no. If he plays one more year for WSU, you get obviously your last COVID year, your redshirt year or whatever, right? And you get to play with Noah again. You get to play with Effie. You get to play with Deshaun. You get to have that chemistry that everyone points him out as, me and Bonton, we have a great chemistry during practice, like Deshaun, Effie, Andre loves talking about Bonton. Everyone revolves around Bonton. He's the leader of the team. He's this, he's that. How is he going to want to leave after how everything went down? So I, for one, don't think he's going to leave. That being said, on a side note, I'll kind of part ways from recruiting and returning players and whatnot. I would really like to see WSU try their hardest to get some non-conference games against some, above average, if not average, Power 5 opponents. I don't want to see them playing not the Big East, the Big Sky or SWAC or things like that. I want to see if they can get a game against. I want to see if they can get a game against like Kansas State, or I want to see if they can get a game against. Let's see if it's something with Tennessee. Something that can actually have some weight to it.
Hopefully there'll be some like tournaments and stuff next year, because usually they play in one of those and get some solid matchups in. That'd be nice. Yeah,
because I think the only non-conference opponent they played the only non-conference opponent they played, I think, last year that was a Power 5 opponent, I think, was Nebraska. Because they're in the Big 10, right? Big 12, something like that.
Big 10, yeah.
Big 10, yeah. So I'd love for them to get an actual non-conference game that's got some weight to it. I don't care if it's, what if it's Gonzaga? I'd love to have a Gonzaga WSU game just so, I just kind of want to watch the Zags, do their thing. But give me a good non-conference game to watch next year. And other than that, it's like we said, Kyle Smith's off to a great start in his first 2 years. I don't know how long his contract is, but if you ask me, he's bound for a renegotiation. But there's not much changes you can really make other than adding depth and just getting your name out there. It's the first winning season in however long. There's not much to really improve on other than just keep the momentum going. But we shall see what happens. Of course, it's going to be an awfully long time until the next regular season for WSU basketball, and we'll see if they can possibly get into a postseason tournament. My money is certainly not on the NCAA tournament, but see if they can get into a CBI or a NIT or something like that. I'll keep my fingers crossed, but this may very well be the end of their season, and we'll see where they can kind of go from there. But without a doubt, it's been a fun season. At least it was a winning one. But that is all we have for you today. You can find all of our written content exclusively on sportspac12.com, and you can follow them on Twitter at sportspac12. You can find links to that written content on our website, dashsports.tv, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at dashsportstv. Lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dash Sports, where you can find all of our shows and clips. Thank you for tuning in. You can find us at the same time next week at 1 o'clock on Thursday. As always, go Cougs. And Cody, it's been fun. Hopefully we can have a good off season.
Yeah.